What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic data coming out for tomorrow, what's going on with some important earnings, what the news is saying about Tesla, what you should be watching for as we approach tomorrow. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks. And the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, when it comes to the way Tesla is moving thus far, I want to call out that there are two possibilities for this. We either have this nice cup and handle like formation that's going to lead to more upside, or we're about to see a head and shoulders like structure, and Tesla's about to see some more downside. I'm going to break down what's more likely and what you should be watching for tomorrow. But we first have to talk about some context because we have a lot of data coming out. So let's talk about this first before I break down the charts for Tesla, SPY, and the others. I want to mention that tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, February 28th. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter coming out for Q4. This is the second estimate that's coming out. We also have a lot of data coming out when it comes to the goods trade balance. And we also have the GDP sales coming out. This is going to be very, very important. Now, GDP growth is very important for understanding how the economy is looking. We're going to be watching to see how close we are to the 3.3% target for the growth rate quarter over quarter. Now, this is also important because it's going to help us see how much contraction there is in the economy and whether or not things are worse than expected. Are we getting closer to a recessionary environment or not? And how are the rate hikes basically affecting the economy so far? Because historically, rate hikes do have a delayed effect on the economy by about 12 to 18 months, depending on like studies and things like that. But it's very delayed. So we will see what happens. This data is very important. So expect some high volatility in the morning. The data comes out before market open at 8:30 a.m. and we'll see what this causes. On top of all of this, I want to call out that we also happen to have some the 17-week bill auction coming out at 11:30 a.m. Very minor data. Then a bunch of Fed speakers from 12 to 12:45 p.m. We have Bostic, Collins, and Williams all giving their speeches. We will see what they cause. But just know all of that's very minor. The most important stuff is going to be the GDP numbers. Watch for that tomorrow, an hour before the market opens. For earnings, I just want to say that we have some energy companies announcing earnings right now. But then for tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday, we have TJ Maxx, a lot of retail stocks. We have AMC after the market closes. We have Snow and a bunch of big ones. So watch for those very, very carefully, the big retail stocks. Nothing is as massive as like an Nvda or like an Aapl. Nothing's that massive, but we do have some significant ones that retail like to watch. So for now, we just have some energy ones like Devon Energy. We'll be watching to see what happens with this. It actually beat earnings by 3 cents and revenue topped estimates. So 3 cents better than expected. Analysts basically estimate $1.38, but they actually got $1.41. And the revenue for the quarter came in at 4.15 billion versus the consensus at 3.88 billion. We also ended up seeing some good looking forecasts when it comes to their EPS revisions, which is not bad whatsoever. So, pretty good earnings from Devon Energy. There's not really much else coming out for today, so I'll talk more about these later. But going into tomorrow, we have more significant ones, which I'll talk about more. For the fear and greed index, I just want to say we're at extreme greed right now. This doesn't matter as much, doesn't guarantee anything yet. Generally, when the market is topping, we do tend to see the market see extreme greed, but there's nothing is could be guaranteed quite yet because we can't truly call a top on SPY yet. We have to wait and see what happens to our direction, especially going into tomorrow. On top of this, I want to call out something very important. So, market volatility, the VIX, is very manipulated right now. Something very strange is going on. The VIX and the dollar have been dropping with the market. The market did bounce at the end of the day and the VIX remained low, but for most of the day, the VIX was falling with the market in a very unusual manner. And this could be because of manipulation, because they're trying very hard to essentially manipulate options and make money off the premiums. Because on the opposite end, the 0 day to expirations are going to be impacted the most, and then we'll just have to see how it goes. I also want to mention that when it comes to the way Tesla is moving, there's been a lot of talk about the next gen robots that are coming out. They're very humanoid like. And Joe Rogan, who's a very famous podcaster, he was just very impressed by it. I can't really show you guys the clip, but I can tell you that he has a very good point. He did imply that was kind of scary at the same time, but it's also incredible. So yes, I think that what Tesla is doing is both. There are risks involved in developing humanoid robots. I will say that, but at the same time, they could greatly benefit humanity in a lot of ways. This will disrupt a lot of markets. That's one thing that Tesla has to consider. Think about all the jobs that could get disrupted from this technology, but at the same time, never forget that this technology is inevitable. It's bound to happen anyways from big tech or even from other countries, and the list goes on. So as a Tesla investor, what I can tell you is that technically speaking, this is bullish. The robots are extremely bullish for the long term of the company. But when it comes to the way it may affect humanity, that is very nuanced. I just want to have a very, very open-minded view, at least for now. Not going to get into like specific details about it, but I just wanted to say that for now. I didn't see any other major pieces of news. We're still seeing Tesla being impacted by Li Auto's earnings, not to mention the BYD news. 109 million in volume is above average, which is not bad whatsoever for Tesla as it tried to pump today. And we saw the short volume go up to about 49%, so still kind of flat. We're not really seeing anything else changing here. Daiwa Capital gave Tesla a neutral rating. On top of this, the price price ratio is just like going up just a little bit, but nothing is really changing that much. When it comes to the hourly seasonality, watch for volatility around 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Wednesdays, we do tend to be green about 48% of the time. There's not really much else changing from there, as financial estimates remain the same. We also have some news summaries right here. You can actually just pause the video and look at these. I'm not seeing anything too crazy from what I was looking at, so it's just worth noting. But if you guys want to take like a screenshot of this, you guys could if you want to see this. We also have some inside trades right here. We're getting a lot of them. So we're seeing a lot of big orders to sell Tesla. So I'm a little concerned about this, especially over the last couple of days. We're seeing like a lot of sellers stepping in. So we'll see if this guarantees anything. It doesn't really guarantee Tesla will have to drop, but it is something worth noting. You can see how it's kind of like affecting it. Moving forward, I just want to call out that now we have this interesting pattern on Tesla. So there are two possibilities for how I think this may end up panning out. This may be bullish. Okay, we could be forming a nice cup and handle like formation where Tesla got this double top like formation at 205. But if we come down like this and we start to rebound like this slowly, we have to try to break 202.5 to 205. If we do something like this, expect a push to 207, if not 212. So that's the more bullish case for a cup and handle. And that's going to help Tesla pump more if we get that bounce. Okay. But but at the same time, one could argue that Tesla has a head and shoulders right here, and this is another pattern that could end up playing out. Maybe the cup and handle fails, we get bad news, and Tesla ends up forming this. So if Tesla ends up pushing, we actually get a failed attempt to break here, and we end up losing like 197.5. There's a very good chance that this imbalance right here, so this is around 192, is going to push Tesla down all the way like that, and this head and shoulders could play out as we re-enter our demand zone. So, what do I think is going to happen? Well, honestly, guys, unfortunately, I have to tell you that I am not a genie. I am not a fortune teller. I cannot see into the future with a crystal ball. I don't know what the GDP numbers are going to look like, just like how I don't know what CPI will look like or what Jerome Powell will always say. Like, those are just some examples. I don't always know what's going to happen, so I can't promise anything with high certainty, but I can tell you that these are the two most likely possibilities. Tesla is showing some weakness getting this rejection, but we'll have to see if we could try to get a bounce. Tesla's still holding up nicely. It's still around this 200 area, so I'd say that both of them are still very possible. It does look to me like Tesla could actually test like 198 and then maybe make a move, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to be very open minded nonetheless. Now, when it comes to SPY, okay, SPY, on the other hand, is stuck between supply and demand. We have resistance at 507, and we also have support at 505. Now, you could draw out an Elliott wave sequence right here. We have a 5 count Elliott wave sequence, right? But the thing is, there's no guarantee that this is complete. Uh, there's no guarantee this means that we've bottomed. I want to make that clear. We can't promise anything. So I can't promise you that this is the top. I can't promise you that this is the bottom. We'll just have to see which way we break. If it breaks 507, watch for a push for 508.5. If that breaks, look for a bigger push back up. If you reject off 507, watch 505 as support. If that fails, a bigger drop is coming to 503.5. We'll see where it goes. Excuse me, guys. I apologize. We're kind of stuck in this range, and we'll have to see what happens after that. The GDP numbers do show how it's going to pan out. It is showing some strength, though. It is breaking this high here, so there's a chance the SPY is about to reverse and push higher. But I'm not going to promise that. We'll just have to see what the GDP numbers cause. The QQQ is super indecisive. It's just in the middle, back and forth price action. If we're bullish, we have to break 438. If that breaks, 440 is coming next. If we lose 436, watch for a drop to about 434 and then 432. But overall, we're just kind of stuck in this level, so we'll just have to see what happens, and we'll see which way this ends up breaking at. For Nvda, Nvda, in my opinion, is kind of flat right now, but it's showing some weakness. So if you look at Nvidia's trend, Nvidia has been downtrending. If you look at this, we made a high here, lower high here, lower high, lower low, and we have this wick at 776. So I do believe that Nvidia is slowly declining. We also happen to have this bearish wedge that's starting to form. So there is, at least from a technical standpoint, more evidence that this might actually drop. But technicals are not everything, of course. You can't forget about the importance of the GDP numbers. If we're bullish after the GDP numbers come out, I could see this thing trying to get back above 790, then 800 above that. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 782. If it loses that, we're going to be sticking to 776 and 771. What do I think is more likely? I do want to let you know that the technicals do suggest some downsides coming. It might sink a little bit more. So just be very, very careful. Always remember that it's important to be open minded. But the odds do favor this dropping a little bit. Now, Apple is showing strength after some bullish news came out. We'll see if this thing can try to break its trend line or not. If the GDP numbers come out and this thing is bullish, watch it come down like this and then try to break out of uh, 183.5 and eventually to 185 plus. That's like the more bullish case. If we're bearish and this thing fails because of the GDP numbers, it has to come down here, back test 182.5 perhaps, and then start dropping back down. 180 to 178 has been critical for Apple. It's been bouncing off that level many times. We'll see if that ends up being the case again. But with that being said, guys, that's it for the main five I typically go over. I'm just going to go over a couple of more just to conclude the video from here. I also want to note that for tomorrow, we happen to have a very interesting trend that's developing. So we'll determine which way SPY is going. Are we going to enter a downtrend or not? Tesla has been showing some nice strength, but we'll see if this could last. We are contracting a little bit on Tesla, so there is a risk of it coming down to like 197.5 and then maybe bouncing or not. So I could see this drop just a little bit from a technical standpoint, but then, like I said before, we'll have to just wait and see what happens with the GDP numbers. It could always just bounce off this and start pushing up or collapse. For Rivian, we called out 11. I told you if this broke, expect more upside. Technicals show 11.52 is coming, but always remember it also depends on GDP numbers. SoFi is looking kind of bullish. If this thing continues to push, we're going to be looking for 9.4. If we reach that, it's going to be great. If we miss it, it is what it is. But I do want to say that this looks very bullish. It looks very strong and it favors the upside. But we'll have to see if the GDP numbers help it as well. ARM looks to me like it's going to be testing 137. If we lose 137, we're going to be sinking to about 133. If we bounce off this, we're going to be making our way back up. So watch this test right here at the 20 EMA. Do we bounce off the green line or do we end projecting? That's going to be happening for tomorrow. For Super Micro, it's looking a little bit more bearish. It's been contracting. We watch support at 833. If we lose this, a bigger drop is going to be coming to about 814 than 800. If we bounce off this, we're going to be retesting 863. Otherwise, I do want to note the trend looks a little bit more bearish. It does favor the downside slightly more. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll also see what Nvidia and the others cause, not to mention the GDP numbers. Palantir looks a bit more bullish. I could see this thing testing the high right here at 25 points. What is this? 25.58, I believe it is. So 25 plus is coming, most likely in terms of technicals. But just to be safe, let's wait and see for confirmation. For the IWM Russell 2000, 204.7 is our target. It is showing some love. It came very close to that level, but watch resistance up there. Might push a little bit more, and then we'll see if it rejects or not. But I could see a little bit more upside based off technicals alone. For Microsoft is basically, we had this head and shoulders. It played out. I called 405 yesterday. We ended up reaching 403.5, 403.8, excuse me. So watch and see if this thing is trying to bounce now. It's trying to bounce. Watch 408 as resistance. If we break 408, we're going to be coming back up to 410. If we reject off 408, we're going to be coming back down to 405. So watch that 408 test. We'll see which way that goes, and that's going to be heavily dictated by the big data. AMT is curling right here, so watch to see if we can get a push towards 180. If we do push towards 180, we could push higher. If we fail to do so, 176 is coming. It is trying to bounce, so this does favor the bulls from a technical standpoint for 180, but just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see. The VIX is very manipulated. It's not moving like it normally does, so be very careful when trying to trade this and watch this. There's this gap down here, and it looks kind of bearish, so it might drop towards 13 and then bounce. So be careful with that and the SQQQ. I know a lot of people like to trade this. Be careful as it's testing the 20 EMA. We'll see if this makes a big move as well. It's kind of stuck just like the QQQ. The dollar index is going to be testing 103.84. If we break that, watch 104 coming. It looks a little bullish, which could be weak, a little bearish for the markets. Coinbase, to me, is looking pretty good. It looks like it might backtest 200, then reject. If we get that rejection off 200, we could retrace to 192, then 185. If we end up holding above 200, look for another push upwards, but showing some weakness, so it might retrace a little bit more before we get that bounce. So look for a little downside before it tries to bounce. For Google, I called 136 and 138 as supports, but I just want to mention that if we break 140, look for 141.78. If we fail to break 140, we could just trade sideways. We'll just have to see, but I do favor that it might actually push higher. For Amazon, I just want to say that Amazon looks a little bit weak right now. It is turning towards the downside. I could see a test of 171.74 from a technical standpoint, and we'll see if the GDP numbers support this. For Meta, Meta is kind of pushing up higher. Meta looks to me like it might be testing around 490 very soon. If it breaks 490, a bigger push is going to be coming. If it ends up breaking down, watch 482 as support. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And if we end up breaking 490, watch 494. I think the odds do favor this testing 490 than 494. But just to be safe, let's see what the GDP numbers cause. All right, guys. So I'll give you guys what I think the charts are most likely going to do for most of these, not everything. Uh, Once again, for Tesla, this does look like technicals are showing 197.5, then maybe a bounce, but I'm not going to say it with high certainty. We'll just have to see what the GDP numbers cause. So let's see what happens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll see how it goes. And with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning before the market opens. Thanks again, and peace out.